Ish Boyle, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining me today. What are you seeing the government doing, and what are you seeing industry partners for the government doing to build the pool of people, both getting people into the cybersecurity area and keeping them in the cybersecurity area that's working well right now, Ish?
That's an interesting question, and this show is a great backdrop for it, because I've talked to a number of military personnel that are here at this particular show. And recruiting great talent is the number one thing that every organization has to do. But after you've recruited them, you got to retain them, to your point, and keep them engaged, keep them interested, and keep their skills sharp. So things that I've seen that are interesting, that seem to work well, is organizations that allow their service members to go do a year in industry. The returns on that are incredible, because what you're doing is you're identifying your top talent. You're allowing them to go work in industry in these cutting edge technology organizations or service organizations where they're going to see something different, but then they're going to bring that knowledge back to then train their peers. I think what that does in an environment, just any organization, I remember when I was in the military and then later working with intel organizations, is everyone wants to have that shot. Everyone wants to be that person that gets selected. So what ends up happening naturally in preparation is a healthy competition to be the best. But then there's this partnership that invariably occurs with the top talent in an org that goes off in tech companies, service companies, and they bring that knowledge back. And I think we've got to keep doing that. That creates innovation. I really believe, here we are at TechNet. I've worked in technology companies for the last 20 years, and before that in the military. Ground zero for innovation is not Silicon Valley. Ground zero for innovation is the National Capital Region. What we see in the government against nation state actors and others is some of the most compelling technology and threats that are happening in real time that ultimately make their way into the financial services sector and insurance, and then Silicon Valley tries to replicate it. I think something else that's really interesting is you're seeing a lot of, when you go back to that point on Silicon Valley, a lot of the early Silicon Valley organizations started in support of the defense industry, in support of the intel industry and the IC. I think we're seeing Silicon Valley come back to that. I know Andreessen Horowitz has announced their American Dynamism, where they're funding companies that are supporting the military, the DoD, and the government. Again, I think that's interesting for recruiting and retaining talent. You used to, if you wanted to get involved in Silicon Valley, you had to move out to Silicon Valley. That's not tenable for many people. That's right. It's very expensive. But here you can go work in support of the government and get incredible exposure that you would get at a Silicon Valley organization. And I think what we have to do is keep fostering that, keep innovating that, and architect careers that make our top 20% want to stay. Mm-hmm. And then again, reward them accordingly.
Quick final thought: what does that career architecture look like from both the career person's perspective and from the organization that wants to keep them and provide them that path?
Sure, I think it's one thing to go send a member of an organization, a unit, into industry, but they have to come back. They have to go teach and enable not just their peers, but in a very formulaic curriculum. So we need to send them back to the military schoolhouses as instructors to go share what they've learned. But I think they need to keep a pulse of, you can't just go into industry, come back, and then close that chapter. Just like any professional military education or intel community, there's constant education that's occurring. Any federal civilian organization has constant education and reset training. So we need to keep cultivating that through their career in order to keep them engaged in industry. So I think it's not just, you can't just send them as a chapter, as a furlough. You got to keep them engaged throughout their career. So I think it'd be interesting as we think about career designators, is this is a person who went off earlier in their career to go engage with commercial firms. Later in the career, let's go send them back, and now they'll see something else. Maybe now they see an Andreessen Horowitz or an early stage venture capital organization that's supporting the defense industrial base. Show them something different where they can now see how are these organizations getting funded. So I think if we could architect careers where every 3 to 5 years you're doing something in support of, whether it's the .gov or the IC or the DoD, you're going back to a segment. And it'd be really interesting, as I'm just sitting here riffing with you, thinking about almost even an MOS tied to that. So here's your cyber operator, or your tech operator, and this designated MOS or skill set is someone who is going to be manning a terminal inside a SCIF, but then they're going to go do something in the Valley or with a tech company. They're going to come back to this SCIF, then they're going to go back and work with a VC. But in doing so, every time they go, on these sort of furloughed moments with other commercial organizations, they're signing up for another 3 to 5 years. I would, if that was an opportunity when I was in the military, I think I would have done 20 or 30 if I could.
Ish, it's great to talk to you. Thanks for your time today.